Hello everyone, welcome back. Got a bit of a different kind of video here today. As you can see, I have the Hyperkin Xbox Duke Controller, which is wired but also not wired. It's very weird. I guess Microsoft has this weird thing about third-party controllers being wireless. So it is technically wired in the sense that it has a wire, obviously. But, I will show you when I take all this off, the wire actually comes out. So it's very strange. See, it just has a... I think this is called a USB-A connector. You can see it there. It's out of focus a little bit. But yeah, basically like that, like the last-gen phone chargers. I think we're on USB-C now for most of it, which is the one that has kind of like an oval shape to it. And it's omnidirectional, so it plugs in either way. But yeah, so it's, in a way it's wired because it only works when it's wired, but it is also, it has no wire as well. So it is technically wired in that way. It's not hardwired in there, like you can pull this out. Which in a way is actually good because typically with a wired controller, if it starts fraying or breaking, you're basically just screwed. And you either need to know how to fix the controller, you need to take it to somebody and pay them to fix it, or you just buy a new controller. So at least with this one, if it breaks, I mean, you just get a new USB-A adapter, so not too bad. But yeah, as you can see, it is a pretty much near perfect recreation of the original Duke controller, which I did not realize I actually still had. So if you look over here, this is the original Duke controller that actually came with my Xbox, which I no longer have, because I'm sure, like many consoles that I used to have, I probably took it to GameStop and got like $20 off of it. And that is not an exaggeration. I think I did sell my Xbox for $20. But yeah, see, this is the original Duke controller. Now, if you compare them side by side, you'll notice this one doesn't have the logo on there, but I'll get to that. It's actually very cool. But yeah, all the button placement is exactly the same. The sticks are the same. The D-pad's the same. The only thing visually on the front that's different is the back and start button, which now is, I think they call this like menu and this is home, or maybe other way around. It's very strange. Like, I don't think these are start and back anymore. I think they have some weird name to it. Like, I think this is the menu button and this is the whatever button. I don't know. I just call them start and back. So I don't even use whatever names they added to them. And then you'll notice another difference on the top. The old Duke controller had these slots for memory cards, which I actually never had. I don't think you ever needed them. I think it's for expanded memory. But either way, I never used them, so they're kind of unnecessary. And obviously, in the current gen, there's really no reason to have that outside of just, you know, sticking to the design functionality of it. But yeah, if you check the backs here, everything's pretty much exactly the same. Even the little bulge where the cable goes. So yeah, design-wise, they are very, very similar controllers. And then I'll also show you kind of a third-party GameStop controller that I have, which I also forgot that I had for the original Xbox. And I can't remember what they called these. I think they were like the Xbox S controllers, where they were basically just the smaller Duke controllers, which if you look at the design of it, it's pretty much in line with what the 360 became. Like, it's actually, as far as grip goes, it's a lot more ergonomic on your hands. And then the button layout for the start and back button, the white and black is down here, which is actually how the controller that I mostly used as a kid was. So this controller is actually more nostalgic in a way, because as obviously, since I still have my Duke controller from my original Xbox, I did not use it very much, because as a kid, I physically could not hold the controller. So I mean, if you want to hold one of these, you pretty much have to be an adult with big adult hands, because this thing is massive. Like you see, even in my hands here, it's like I can reach every button easily, but I mean, for the white and black, I do have to reach a little bit. Like, I have to move my hand up like that. So it is still pretty massive. And the other design thing that's different is that you have the RB and LB here. So if you want to play modern games, you have that option as well. But it is quite a reach, I will say. So it's like you have the triggers back here, and then you have the LB and RB up here. So you have to reach quite a way, if you see my finger there. So it's not exactly the most ergonomic way to do it, but I mean, realistically, the white and black button have the same exact functionality as L and B. So the white button here would be LB, and the black button would be RB. So it's like for games like, let's say, Halo, if you're going to play the original Halo, this would still be like the flashlight button, and I think this would be to change your grenades. Or you could just do it up here. So it's like, if you want to play it the classic way, you could do it like that. But realistically, I do just still use the white and black button, because if you look at the original Xbox games on the Xbox One store, they still, in their control schemes, tell you to like hit white button to do this, or hit black button to do that. So if you're playing with a regular Xbox One controller, you just have to hit LB and RB. But if you're playing this controller, it's a more authentic feel. So you actually do press the button that says on screen. So it is a little bit better in that way. But yeah, I'll show you a cool thing with the controller when you plug it in. To keep the spoil out, I'm going to take it off screen there while I plug it in and then reveal it afterwards. So now when you look at the controller, now there is a glowing Xbox logo there. I'll focus in on that so it shows up better. Yeah, there it is. Look at that, it's nice. So yeah, basically just like the original Duke, you can see it through the cables there. It has the Xbox logo in there, and this one has a light-up logo, which this now is your home button. So instead of having, like, let's say for the Xbox One controller, the home button's right there on the top, you have this one here, you push this in and that's the home button. But there's also a little gimmick that happens whenever you press it, which is very cool. So I'll show you right now. So look at that. It actually plays the original Xbox startup. It doesn't have the sound, but it is cool having the visuals. And there's actually a funny story on this design here, because Microsoft, back when they invented the Xbox, they actually wanted the original Xbox controller to do this, but because of hardware limitations, they couldn't do it. But it's always something they actually wanted to do. So when they did the Hyperkin controller, they actually added that as a feature, which is really cool retroactively to look at. But yeah, I'll also be showing some games being played with this, just to give you an idea of how it plays, because that is the most important part of a controller. And I'll also go through and show you the different controllers throughout the years, so you get an idea of what it looks like. This is actually the launch controller that I got, because I had the Halo 3 Edition Xbox controller. I took out the battery pack so they don't melt, so that's why that's missing. But yeah, this actually came with my launch Xbox, the one that got the red ring several times, so won't talk about that. And then obviously you have the Xbox One controller, which I have little thumb grips, and they're kind of like cushioned a little bit. Because I was noticing on certain games having to press these down was starting to get a little painful. But it's mostly from playing for an exorbitant amount of time. But yeah, you compare them all side to side there. Have all the generations. I also will be having the Series X coming in soon, which not exactly proud of who I bought it from and what type of people I bought it from, but we'll get into that when it comes in. Knowing the reputation of these kinds of people, it could be filled with rocks and sand, so we shall see. But either way, it says that I've ordered it, so we'll find out. Alright, so I'm going to get on to the gameplay portion. I'm going to play 3 different games, just to kind of give you a taste of the controller. And obviously from here out, it's going to be recording on the Elgato, so you're not going to see the controller, but I will be using the controller and giving feedback on it, so away we go. Bit of an interesting aside here. Definitely not normal. As you can see, there is an insane amount of artifacting on my TV right now. I have no idea why. So actually, I just plugged in the Elgato. If you can see it right down there in the shadows. Yeah, and it's never quite done this. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. But yeah, I'm going to change out the HDMI cable, see if that's the problem. Don't know what this is. Hope this is... Because it's actually, when I unplug it, it doesn't do this, so this is very strange. I just wanted to include this because I have no idea what's happening. In the entire time I've had this Elgato, this has never happened. Yeah, not really sure what that whole screen thing was. I did the tried and true method of just unplug it and plug it back in, and that fixed everything. But then a couple other graphical things happened, which was strange, so frankly, I don't know what just happened, but either way, we're moving on. As you can see, I have quite the selection here of classic Xbox games, so going to keep it fairly simple and just choose 3. And let's see, what are good ones? I'm gonna do Fusion Frenzy, do Morrowind, and Star Wars Battlefront. That should be a good spectrum there of games to choose. And then also you'll notice a cool factor when you start up the classic original games. Oh, just got a quest for the Game Pass. Nice. But yeah, anyway, as you'll see, it has the classic Xbox startup. Very cool sound. Yeah, they've always had really cool startups. That one is by far the most iconic to me. The 360 one was cool, and the Xbox One, it's weird to say, is also kind of cool, but yeah, nothing tops the original. Oh, now that is classic there. Alright, let's begin. Yeah, I'm just going to basically choose 2 little mini-games just to show you the gameplay. This is actually one of my childhood favorites here. This game is fantastic. If you've never played it, I would highly recommend it. Alright, let's see. And it's on the Xbox One, so yeah, go ahead and pick it up. Just pause the video, go buy it now. It's a very good game, it's worth it. But yeah, let's see. You know what? Laser Snare is really good. I'm going to do Laser Snare and the Sumo one. Those are two of the most fun ones to choose. Alright, so it begins. This is basically a game where you just kind of circle around them and try to murder them. Quick edit there, I was actually looking for this one here. The other one was like a coin collecting one. But regardless, basically what I was saying is the same thing. This one is where you just basically keep going like this, and you just like right there, you basically try to block them in. And you can also die by your own trail, so keep that in mind. Oh, you are dead. Cannot beat me at this game. Oh, okay, yes you did. Alright. Got a high point total, so don't really care. Yeah, basically this entire game is just filled with fun little mini-games like this. And then they have a tournament mode where I think you do like 3 mini-games and then you do a final game where it's like a battle royale where you try to collect as many points as you can and then you keep the other team from getting points. Yeah, and basically as you keep going, the trail gets longer and longer. So it gets even more difficult to stay alive, which is very fun. Very nerve-wracking as well. But yeah, this one, there's one where you cut out the floor, is a very fun one. You have the sumo one, which is always good. Those are the classics. I'm pretty sure there's actually a demo of this game before. I swear I had a demo disc with Fusion Frenzy on it. Ah, damn it. Yeah, the AI is kind of smart sometimes. Okay, you know what? You win by 2 points. Who cares? I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter about that. Oh, would you look at that? Right above it is sumo. Yeah, I swear there was a demo because I remember the screen here had all the things on it, and there were like maybe 4 or 5 of them available to select. I actually don't even know where all my demo discs are. And as you'll notice in old games like this, almost no load times. It's pretty crazy, actually. It's funny how generations got more and more advanced, the load times also got much, much longer. Where now it's a thing where they're like, the Xbox Series X and the PS5 have almost 0 load times. It's like, yeah, so did like the N64 and the original Xbox. So pretty much we're actually just going back to those days. But yeah, as you can see by the gameplay here, you can understand why games like this is very fun. Because not only is it a thing where you have to knock everyone off the map here, but also, as you can see that little thing cutting off the map gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's like a tiny sliver. So you basically just, kind of like the original Battle Royale. Oh, there goes Samson. He's out. Oh, nope. Oh, God. Oh, no. Well, I'm dead. Yeah, it's been a long time since I played this one. Because I did play Fusion Frenzy recently. I did a 2-round tournament. Oh, there she goes. Just fell right off. Yeah, this game is a classic. I'm actually very proud of Microsoft for their love of backwards compatibility. The fact that now going into the Xbox Series X, you can play original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X games on the same console is absolutely insane. And I do hope they add more, because I'll buy just about any of the Xbox original games. The one I'm absolutely looking for, and I know you're watching this, Microsoft, is I want Brute Force. I want Brute Force on there. Because that's a game as a kid where I would play it every now and then, but I'd be like, ew, it's not Halo, so I'd put it down. But yeah, it was a fun game, so I hope they can add that. I'm actually incredibly shocked that they haven't added Brute Force yet, because that was like one of their big games, including Halo. That was like one of the few exclusives that was like a big system seller. But anyway, on to the next game. Now we're going to start up Morrowind Game of the Year Edition. This is actually cool because the Xbox One version of it, it has the expansion passes, which I think was Blood Moon, and there's another one that I am blanking on. But it was Blood Moon and something else. Which is funny because I got this as a kid, and I may even still have the original box for it. But again, I was in a bit of a phase back then where anything that wasn't Halo I just hated. And then Battlefront 2 came out. Actually, the first Battlefront came out, and I played that first, and I loved that as well. So 2 games. Battlefront and Halo were pretty much all I played on the original Xbox. So yeah, games like this, I would pick it up and play it, and I'd be like, ew, I don't like it. Where's the guns? Where's the high-speed action? Obviously, I've grown since then. I put like 300 hours into Skyrim, so obviously, times have changed. But yeah, actually, one of my oldest videos, like 2011, I made a video saying like proof that Fallout 3 is bad, and it was because there was like a graphical glitch on screen, which is another thing I have wildly changed on. Oh, and also, you saw on the screen back there, the controller. That was the Xbox S, I think is what they called it. As I mentioned previously, where it was like the upgraded version of the Duke. Yeah, here we go. Look at this, baby. 60 frames per second. Can you believe your eyes? On the original Xbox. I've actually heard the Series X does up the performance, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Morrowind is actually one of my favorite locations. I do hope they do some kind of like remaster in this location because, I mean, just look at the world. It looks it's like very swampy and there's giant bugs walking around. I'm going to try to find a bug if I can. You can also switch, there we go. You switch to third person, which has my favorite walking animations I've ever seen. I love the walking animations. Look at them go. Yeah, I chose the Argonian, and I can pull up my weapon with one of these buttons. There we go. I love how the weapon, by the way, it just goes, here. It just yanks right out. He's just ready to go, just swinging. And I also have a spell of some kind, which I just love how you change weapons around, where it's like that just pops out, and then this whoop just pops out. So yeah, Morrowind is quite the classic. Whoa, this thing has power behind him. Okay, I don't know what this thing is. This is like when you start an RPG and you're fighting pigs and like chickens or something. Oh, maybe I was missing those previous attacks. So I'm seeing the blood now. Oh, it's a mud crab, okay. They look quite different than they did in Skyrim. Let's see. Okay, so he has some crab meat on him. Good. Yeah, as you can see, if you've played Morrowind, I am not very far into the game. Actually, this is probably about as far as I've ever gotten in my life, because, as I mentioned, I was a kid and I did not play this game. Which is unfortunate because, as I mentioned, this is like the Game of the Year edition where it comes with 2 expansion passes, or expansion packs they would be called back then. So yeah, I would have had quite a bit of content to play if I had only, noticed the content that was there. And also being an Argonian, I can breathe underwater, which is nice. I think you have to activate... Whoa! Okay. Die, you fool. But yeah, again, much like Fusion Frenzy, if you have an Xbox and you've been wanting to play Morrowind, now is the time, and I'm getting out of this water. Oh my god, am I gonna die? Am I gonna die because of these stupid... Okay. Whew, that was scary. Alright, let me heal. Oh, that's actually a lot of healing. You know what? That thing is gonna die. Die, silverfish. Alright, no, I think these are slaughterfish. Yeah. I'm improving my skills by being beat on here. Die, you fish. Is there like a chance to attack or something? Because I miss so many of these attacks. I don't know what the problem. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Heal, baby. Oh, I failed. Okay, that's a problem. But yeah, basically you're just getting a good view of the game here, and obviously I'm using the Duke controller, and everything's working flawlessly. It's nice. I'm not entirely sure how to play the game yet because I haven't sat down with it, and obviously I probably shouldn't even be fighting these guys anyway, because as you can see, I'm a lowly lizard. I've got no armor. I have a tiny little dagger. So yeah, I'll come back. I'll kill these fish later. Now on to one of my all-time favorites. Look at the droidicas. Look at them go. You have Star Wars Battlefront 2 here, the classic one, not the one that you've seen recently. And you know what? I'm actually also a cool thing that was added. I'm going to mention this for anybody who even knew about this. Back in the olden days, the original Xbox did actually have DLC, which was kind of a game changer because they're one of the few that actually did that. And one of the DLC was in Star Wars Battlefront 2, which I'll show you down here. You have these maps down here, like where is it at? One of these space ones is DLC, but I can't off the top of my head remember it. But there is Jabba's Palace was DLC, I know that for sure. I think Felucia was DLC, and Bespin certainly was. Because Bespin has Assault, which is like the Jedi versus Sith kind of thing. But the cool thing about this one here is that they added 2 new heroes. So the DLC basically added 2 heroes and it added 4 maps. And when this was actually originally released, you couldn't play as those heroes or use the maps because it was an Xbox One kind of port of it, and you couldn't access the store anymore. So what they did sneakily in an update was just add the characters. So as you can see, I'm playing on Bespin, which is a DLC map, and I'm playing as Kit Fisto, which was one of the 2 characters that was added. Which is cool because it was this guy, and then it was Asajj Ventress were the 2 that were added. So it was actually 2 pretty high-level ones, and he was always my favorite because he has this, like, force ball attack, where he just throws out this, as it sounds, a force ball. It's like a little force bubble. See, General Grievous is coming after me. Oh! Die, you fool. Oh! Well, I knocked him back, but he sure killed me. Yeah, this game actually, funny enough, was released with there was like a demo disc that was in Revenge of the Sith, where it came with a Battlefront 2 demo disc, which was cool that they used to do stuff like that. Obviously now that's kind of a relic because you don't need to, everything's digital, so it's like, why would they do that? But it's just cool. It's just a nice little thing to have. It's mostly a nostalgia thing, I understand that. Got the saber throw, of course. Oh, there's a Sage Ventress right there. Switch back to my force bubble. Ugh. Or force orb, as it says on the screen. Nope, no Asajj, please. As you can see, she has the cool dual-wielding lightsabers. Yeah, I'm actually going to switch sides here and show you Asajj Ventress as well, just so you get a good example of both of them. But yeah, this game, as with the other two, is an instant classic. It is incredibly fun. As you can see, you've got Boba Fett here, you got Asajj Ventress, you have Anakin Skywalker, which is cool they put him on the villain side with Darth Vader. Then you have the Emperor, you got General Grievous, Darth Maul, you even have Jango Fett, which is who I used to play as very frequently, and Darth Vader. So yeah, I'll go ahead and... I would usually either play as Anakin or Jango. Those are my two favorites. Yeah, I'll go ahead and show off Asajj Ventress here. Yeah, I am looking forward to the improvements that come with the Xbox Series X, because they even said Xbox Original and Xbox 360 games get an increase as well, which is pretty innovative. I don't think anybody's ever done that. Cool. As you can see here, she kind of uses them as nunchucks. And then you also have, like, throwing stars, which are pretty broken, as you just saw there. Just completely melted Mace Windu. Oh, looks like Yoda wants to die. Yeah, I actually don't know if this was canon or not, her using the lightsabers like this. Because I know in the show she just used them as, like, dual-wielding lightsabers. But here she swings them around like they're nunchucks. It's very interesting. And she even holds them, like you see, she holds them like you would nunchucks as well. And they even have a little string on them, too. So yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, this is just a fun little game mode here where it's the heroes versus villains. It's actually one of those things that was kind of kept secret because they never really said it out loud that you could use this mode. I just saw that some maps had what was called Assault on it, and I was like, oh, what's that? And I clicked on it and saw all heroes and villains, and I absolutely lost my mind. I was like, oh my god! Because that was my favorite part, is just playing as the heroes or the villains when you're in the campaign. So yeah, the fact that this mode is just all-out warfare between them is very cool. It's also pretty hectic, as you can see. I'll also show you some gameplay of just the regular foot soldier action. That way you can get some variety. Alright, here we go. And also there's something cool too. Like you see, I booted up on Geonosis here, and the clone troopers actually match the environment too. Because normally they don't actually look like this. Like this guy here, he normally has blue stripes on him. But when you play on the Geonosis map, he looks like he did in the original Attack of the Clones, where it's just like a standard clone trooper. Wow, that's just immediately starting, huh? Just starting in on that? Oh, Jesus, Droideka right off the bat. Ugh, no, please! Yeah, the Droidekas were a bit broken. Same thing with the, what do you call them, the Super Battle Troopers. I always just like playing as the classic guys here. They don't have a lot of crazy versatility, but the fact that they're just... I mean, they do have versatility, but they don't have a lot of specialization, I should say. Where they basically just have kind of like right down the middle, which is typically what I like to play. Like when I played Skyrim, I played like a half melee, half magic fighter. But yeah, these games are just absolute classics. And as I mentioned previously, I'm still using the Duke controller, which feels just right. That's the thing about these classic controllers, that when you use them, like I bought the NES controller and the SNES controllers for the Switch, because they have them for if you're like a Nintendo Online member. I also bought, somebody did like a third-party Sega controller, and then there's the GameCube controller as well, obviously, for Smash. But yeah, regardless, if you're using the classic controller, there's something about it where it just, when you're playing the controller that's meant for the game, it does feel a lot better. Like, it's kind of weird to me playing with a Pro controller and playing Super Mario 64, for instance. Like, obviously, the GameCube controller is not the controller it was intended for, but the joystick is basically the same, and the buttons are pretty much the same size as they were on the N64. So in that way, it is close enough. I do wish they would make an N64 controller, though, because that would be fantastic. But yeah, it's just one of those things where if you really, really want the nostalgia feel of it, then I would definitely get the classic controllers. Because it feels right. It feels like it was meant to. Yeah, I could just play through the rest of the match here, but basically just wanted to show you the gameplay, show you the controller with the games. And also I've noticed with all three of these games, the load times are crazy fast. As I mentioned in Fusion Frenzy, it's something now where game companies are like, the load time is less than 10 seconds. Which is pretty much just what gaming was back in these days. Like, granted, I know there's higher graphical fidelity. Ooh, I got Mace Windu. There's higher graphical fidelity now, and games are bigger, so they take longer to load. But that is the drawback. That is the drawback. And you're seeing now where they're going back in time, basically, and being like, oh, okay, let's slow down a bit. These load times are way too long. See, everything comes full circle in the end. I'm gonna destroy this thing. Yeah, come here, you fool. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we got Revenge of the Sith on DVD, I would just play the hell out of this demo. I can't remember what maps were in the demo, but I played it like it was a full game. I just played it nonstop. Because it was the first one that let you play as the heroes as well, so being able to run around as Obi-Wan was driving me crazy. I loved it. But yeah, anyway, that's it for these games. I will go back to the live-action footage now and wrap this whole thing up. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the video. So yeah, closing thoughts on the controller. It is a nice controller. It is pretty much an exact replication of the Duke, so whatever your thoughts were on that controller, they will carry over to this one. Nothing has really been changed functionally to make it different from the original Duke controller, which is kind of the point with these. I actually don't like when they make like modern improvements. Like obviously the buttons up here are so far out of the way that you can pretty much forget that they're even there. And then removing the memory cards is another choice that is not going to affect anything because there's really nothing that goes on up here in the first place. But yeah, really, whether you want this controller is up to personal preference. I, for one, enjoy it. I like the controller. As you can see, it fits well enough. It is still incredibly big, so that is the big downside to it. It is still a very massive controller. As you can see, I'll hold it next to the Xbox One controller, so you can get a good idea of how big it is. Place it on top there. Looking at it on camera, it looks about the same size, but once you hold this bad boy, it is very big. Yeah, it's hard to really get a feel of how big the controller is until you hold it. Like to give you an example of hand size here, I pretty much reach all the way across. I can touch everything with just my thumbs. Fingers up here, go between the buttons. So yeah, in your hand, it definitely feels a lot smaller. And then you go over to this one, which, again, with my thumbs, they can barely touch, and they definitely can't reach all across the controller. And if you do, you have to move your hands outward, like for moving between the triggers, like I mentioned, like back here. And then moving to these buttons, you do have to reach up significantly. So functionally, it pretty much depends on what you prefer. Obviously, it does not hold up to the modern specs. But really, that's not what you judge a retro controller on anyway. It's mostly just for nostalgic value. If you want to play it as it's meant to be played, I would highly recommend getting this. I would probably wait for it to go on sale because it is normally, I think, $70, which is about on par with modern controllers, but it is also not a modern controller, so it really depends on how much you want to spend. Because I got it on sale, I think it was for either $50 or maybe it was like $45 or something like that. And then I used some Microsoft Rewards gift cards to be able to lower the price as well. So I did get it for cheaper than you normally would, and for that I absolutely recommend it. For $70, I mean, it's right in the middle. It's at the price range of modern controllers, so it's really up to you. Same thing as I mentioned in my Marvel vs. Capcom video, where the cabinet is $500. I mean, if you want to go down that road of arcade games and classic games, you do kind of realize that things aren't cheap. They just, as time goes on, they get more expensive. So even though this is a new controller, it is made in the image of an old controller, which is kind of a niche market, so they do have to charge accordingly. So yeah, that is definitely something to keep in mind if you do plan on getting this. But yeah, part of the argument, too, between like going from the Xbox original to the Xbox One controller, obviously this one is far superior in the terms of just where the buttons are placed and the ergonomics and the triggers and everything. But to the counter-argument of classic controllers, if you compare these two controllers, which you have the GameCube controller here, it's a pretty nice controller. It's one of my favorite Nintendo controllers, but you do have to agree that the size and like kind of like the weird shapes of it, it just doesn't look normal. I mean, it does fit, it does work properly, but these are a bit thin. As you can see there, they're a bit paper thin, they don't fit perfectly well. So you compare that to the newest, brand new, like, Nintendo console Pro controller, which is for the Switch here, and it's pretty much like an Xbox and PS4 hybrid. Like, both of those kind of mixed together if you look at the Gamepad design. And this actually, by the way, is fantastic. This one does fit very well. I actually bought this to play Hades, of all games, where you'd think you don't need a Pro controller for that, but if you want to get into the advanced play, you definitely do. But yeah, that is just basically the extent of my argument there for the controller, where, technically speaking, it is outdated in that way, but if that's why you're buying the controller, you just want the nostalgic factor, and like, let's say, for instance, you're not going to be using this for Fortnite competitive play or playing Call of Duty Warzone or something like that, You're probably not going to be taking this to gaming competitions, but it is fun just to have for the novelty. And anytime I pick up the old Xbox original games, I do use this controller, just because, I mean, I could use the Xbox One controller, but it is nice just to have the classic nostalgic feel. And it does translate a lot better because the games were obviously designed for this controller, so all the button placement and everything, it's made to be played with this controller. And another thing to point out before the end is the button placement as well is kind of different. Like you'll see here, they are slanted, like an italic design. And then you see here the buttons are all just kind of in just a straight cross. But this one here, you can definitely tell a difference. So that will kind of throw you off if you're not used to playing the old Xbox design. Like even I'll show you here the Xbox S controller, which was the second controller made. You have them in the modern design here. So yeah, pretty much the Duke. The Duke is the only one exclusive in that way, where they're in that button pattern. And pretty much any controller ever, they're the only ones that I've seen with that kind of like slanted button mapping. Yeah, that is pretty much it. I don't know if there's really a need to do any kind of number rating for these. I do recommend it, because I don't really know where exactly to rate this. Like, do I rate it based on modern functionality? Because that would be kind of ridiculous to do that. I'll basically just rate it on what it's supposed to be, which is a classic recreation of the old controller. And in those regards, I'm very close in between an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It is it's a very well-made controller. It's very sturdy. You knock on it, it is hardcore. It feels like a brick. I would not drop it because no controller is really meant to be dropped, so I definitely would not do drop tests on it. Because controllers are very finicky in that way. They'll survive one drop or they'll survive 1,000. You just never know. It's just like it'll hit at that perfect angle where it cracks a chip or something. So yeah, I won't be doing part of that as the review, but I'll jump on, you know what, I'll give it I'm just going to go for a 9 out of 10. I will say it is very good. It is very sturdy. Feels like a very nice controller. I like the thumbstick placements. The D-pad feels nice. I like how it has like these weird grooves in it. Like you can see how it's like, it's not exactly a D-pad like modern D-pads. It's like a weird little like hollow circle. It's very strange to describe, but it does feel, when you're playing the old Xbox games, it does feel right. But I will say the only point that I can really knock off is these buttons do sound a little bit crunchy. Like you can hear it here. Like it has this weird like suction sound to it. So it can get annoying when you hear that. But it is one of those things where it's really a minor gripe. But I will say it is enough to detract a little bit. And I would maybe take a point away for the fact that it's not wireless, but that's really on Microsoft. I mean, if they don't allow them to do it, then they can't do it. So there's no point in even harping on that. But either way, very solid controller. I like it. There we go. That's all you can really say about that. And look at it. It's the Duke. It's the classic. It's the biggest controller ever made, I would imagine. At least for modern consoles. I know there's like arcade racing wheels and fight sticks that are bigger. But just as far as regular controllers, it probably is one of the biggest. But yeah, anyway, I'll probably do a few more of these. I don't really know. Maybe I'll go through some of my Nintendo controllers, do some reviews there, play some games that really match what they're supposed to be. So we'll see. I have an unboxing soon, which is a exciting and also heartbreaking moment in my history of the Xbox Series X. I'll get more into it when it gets here, assuming that it's real. But yeah, we'll get more into that when that comes out. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back then.